Hey everyone, welcome to Building a Financial Legacy, Empowering Divorced Mompreneurs and Their Kids with Finances 101. We are so happy that you are here today to dive into finances and really squash financial illiteracy. So welcome, welcome. I see all the kids there. That's fantastic. We're going to be presenting finances, the basics of finances, making a budget plan, spending plan, creating, defining interest accounts, the best way to set goals, and all the things. So the very basics we're going to get in today. And if you have any questions, we're going to save them to the end. You can go ahead and type them in the chat, and then I can answer them at the end. And if you haven't already, please head over to the idatemoney.com iDate Money quiz and find out who your money archetype is and share that in the comments. I love to see who is driving your personality. So there are 7 money archetypes, and we all have all 7 of them in us, but there's one driver, and I'm Sal the spender. I love to spend money, and that dictates a lot of the decisions that I make. So learning how to recognize that and hone it in so that we can have that good balance so we could save, spend, and give. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Lisa Drennan. I am a wealth activator. What is a wealth activator? I help solopreneurs, divorced mompreneurs, single moms manage both their business and their personal finances so that they can multiply the money that they're already receiving and have more money. We tackle creating a customized wealth money map. We look at investing and saving and multiplying the money based on what is congruent to our lifestyle. And then we work on rewriting our money story. So many of us make decisions based on what we learned from childhood. And, subconsciously, we are taking actions, making decisions about money that we learned from, our caregivers, from school, from our environment. So we tackle that in the Wealth Accelerator program. So go ahead, take that money quiz and share in the comments. Today we are going to be focusing over the next hour or so, just to get into these basics. So, one of the things that I like to talk about is my own financial journey. Where have I been? I've been in finance and insurance since 1987. I started off as a bankruptcy paralegal. My job was to create budgets for people who had just filed for bankruptcy. And I remember sitting there, and this is back in the days of pen and paper. We used to have the accounting sheets, the data sheets with the little square boxes. And I would create their budgets for them. And they would look at me, it's like, well, that's restrictive. And like basically it was like, you're eating ramen noodles for a while until you can get your money back up. But when you go bankrupt, which is something that I experienced at 22 years old, I had $32,000 worth of debt. And unfortunately, I had gotten into a credit card trap. I was a single mom raising my son was, was he 3 years old at that time, and kids grow, right? They need clothes and things like that. And I had let a relative borrow money, took a loan out for them with the promise that they would pay it back in 30 days. Well, they didn't, and then they defaulted, and it was my responsibility to pay that back. And then that same person forged my name, used my car as collateral on another loan. And one day I came home from work and the tow trucks and the police cars were there. And I was like, what gives? And they were going to tow my car because I defaulted on a loan. And I'm like, no, no, I have a lot of credit, but a lot of debt, but I have not defaulted on anything. And I had a call the creditor. I didn't even, they gave me a copy of the letter and I saw that my name was forged. And I'm like, no, 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 you're not taking my car. And I was flipping out. I was so angry. And, when I get really angry, all these tears were flying down, but I was like flipping out and pacing back and forth. And I'm like, you can't take my car. This is my means to work. I have to take care of my kid, you know. So they ended up not, I can still get a little shooken up by that, but they ended up not taking my car and I ended up filing a police report. And then another relative had bailed this person out. So I understand the, fear that we have around money. Like, I grew up with the idea that, money can be taken from you very easily. And, if you let family members borrow money, you don't need to pay that back. And maybe a lot of you have that, like you have personal loans with your family members, and it's the last thing that you'll ever pay back. And I think about when we borrow money from someone, whether it be a MasterCard, Visa, personal loan, or equity loan, whatever, that's money somebody else worked hard for, earned, saved so that they can be a lender, right? And so for us to have this attitude of not paying it back, like where does that come from? That's one of our money stories. So go ahead and share in the chat who your money archetype is. Let's see who we have. I'm excited to see this. Um, we got some sell the spenders. We got Harry the Hoarder. We have three here, Harry the Hoarders. Awesome. Grant the Giver. Yeah, my mom was Grant the Giver. We also have Maverick the Moneymaker. Oh, you're probably like the first one that has chosen Maverick the Moneymaker. That's awesome. I love multiple income streams. Yeah. All right. We have a couple of oh, little pause here. I don't know. Gary the Gambler. Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. So you'll be getting emails that describes each of your money archetypes and action steps that you can take to bring out the positive and to work through and neutralize the negative. But like I always like to say, there's no good or no bad. So go ahead and we're just going to do a little workshop overview. In this workshop, we're going to be teaching you and your kids the basics of financial literacy, empowering you to build a strong financial foundation. And everyone always asks, how old should my kids be before I start teaching them about money? As soon as they want something, they say, oh, I want this book, I want this candy. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old granddaughter, and I was teaching them about money. I went to go visit them over the weekend, and this is a dollar bill, right? And you show them. It's really important to understand the financial concepts like budgeting, saving, and investing at a very young age and gain confidence in managing money. We don't teach this in school. So it's really important, regardless of how old you are, to have that confidence in managing money and then taking actionable steps to set financial goals and create a family financial plan. So when you leave at the end of this workshop, you will create a spending plan. You're going to build your confidence in managing money, and you're going to set some financial goals and create a family financial plan. I found that when families are on the same page, then their money will all go to where it needs to go without that craziness of, oh, I want this and it's not fair, and all the other comments that we make, right? So we're just going to, before we dive into the actual workshop, I just wanted to do a little icebreaker activity. So what's one thing you'd do if money wasn't an issue? So go ahead and share in the comments. And yes, your kids can share too. So go ahead and put theirs in the comments. What is one thing you would do if money wasn't an issue? All right, got some responses coming in. What's one thing you would do if money wasn't an issue? I'd buy a new bicycle. I'd get a board, go snowboarding every weekend. I'd go to the spa. We would take weekend camping trips. We would fly home to see our grandparents. We would buy a new pair of jeans for every day of the week. I love that. We would have all the candy we wanted. We would have picnics in the family room with all the best appetizers. That's fun. I like that. Yeah, and a lot of times we say we can't have those things because there's not enough money. We can't go travel, there's not enough money. We can't go to the concerts. We can't buy the designer clothes because there just isn't enough money. But is that really true? Where does your money go? When we think about our money, most households do not have a written spending plan. And the rule of thumb is if you don't have a plan, you will fail. Fail to plan, plan to fail. And when you think about where do you want your money to go, how would you love to spend your money? And this is the key. The language patterns that we use is so important in how we're going to spend our money. You get to create a conscious spending plan, a money system, a money budget, whatever word you want to use. I don't like the word budget, so I try to avoid it because it's very restrictive, right? But when you have a spending plan that's congruent with your lifestyle, that fits your core values, that allows you to enjoy going on trips to see grandparents, going away for the camping trips for the weekend, being able to get designer jeans for every day of the week. When you build that into your budget, you get to do it. But what happens is we automatically think that we have to have all the bills paid. And then if anything's left over, then we get to save, we get to, go on the trips, we get to buy the designer clothes. But it doesn't have to be that way. I know for me, after I filed my bankruptcy, I made a promise to the judge that I would never be in that position again and kept it until I was around 40. I'm 57 now. But what happened at 40 is I ended up with $100,000 worth of debt, which compiled over, a 10-year span because I was so afraid to spend the money that I had saved. And I had a budget, but I had told myself that I wasn't responsible, that money burned a hole in my pocket. So therefore, I had to take it away from me. And for the, you know, yeah, when money burns a hole in your pocket, it means that you can't hold on to it. You got to spend it faster than you receive it. Anybody relate to that? Yeah, I see a bunch of hands up. So when you think about that, um, how do you manage money? And that's why it's so important to know who's your money archetype, who's driving that, right? So Salva Spender likes to spend money. As soon as he gets money, let's go blow it. But I wasn't really blowing money. I was buying things that I wanted and I had the money saved. I was just so afraid. It was conditioned to me not to touch my savings because I worked so hard for it that I couldn't spend it. And we really want to have that balance. So through the years, as I was, managing my money, creating, I started off using the money envelope system. I still use it. And I just call it money buckets now. Some people call it money pockets. Basically, you just put or allotments, money allotments, you just put money aside for how you want to spend it. And when you divide your money up, we call this in percentages, right? So you all know percentages a part of, you think of the fractions that you learn at school. We put a percentage into different money buckets so that we always have money for what we desire. And if you look at your expenses, right? You probably have things on there that you're like, I don't even know if I've used that in the last 6 months. And the rule of thumb is if you haven't used something in 6 months, you're most likely not going to use it. You can get rid of it. But a lot of families will have a lot of the same expense, the same type of expense. Like they'll have three different streaming services. They'll have the Disney package, the NFL package, this package, that package. And really, aren't you, when you watch TV, do you always go to Netflix? So maybe just have Netflix for a while. But if you want all that in your spending plan, then you get to keep it. But then maybe something like designer jeans every single day for the week have to go, or weekend trips to see, for camping or what have you, they have to go. So it's about looking at your desires and your family's desires and saying, okay, what is our top priority? So with the money multiplier system, this is something I teach in the Wealth Accelerator, is we always take our income and regardless of, you Google this stuff, you go to YouTube, you read any book, anyone's going to tell you in the financial world that 50% is always going to go for your needs. Okay. 10% for savings, bare minimum is 10% for savings. Okay. And then 10% for giving, 10% for fun money, and 20% for debt. If you are debt free, then you're going to put that 20% towards savings and investments. Okay. And we really want to think about how do we want to divvy up our money. And a lot of questions that I get when I say 50% for needs, that percentage, you can live off of 50%. Needs versus wants is something we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. But moving on to, and remember, just type your questions in the chat. Just put it in your chat and I'll get to them at the end. This way we'll just kind of streamline the presentation because the questions might be answered as we're going through. So thank you for doing that. Um, the power of saving is what we're going to start off with. When clients come to work with me in the Wealth Accelerator, they're like, I'm not saving 10%. The most important thing that you can do for you and your family is set up savings. Create an emergency fund. Okay. You want to have 6 months worth of needs in your emergency fund. And you want to put it in a savings account that earns the highest interest possible. Right now, online savings banks yield the best interest. They pay around 3.5%. Ally Bank has money buckets, which I absolutely love, and Discover Savings offers. Those are the two highest savings accounts right now. You can just Google highest interest paid on savings accounts for personal savings accounts, and you can see which ones, every week they update the savings account interest, um, usually on Tuesday. And what happens with interest? It compounds your money. So if you get, 5% interest on a dollar, that gets added to your account and it compounds daily. So, the 5% on that dollar every single day, then it becomes the $1.05, the $1.10, and so forth, right? So it's building up. So you can actually make money on that money that's sitting in your savings account. And then when you have an emergency, you use that money for emergency. Now, what's an emergency? An emergency would be the car breaks down, the refrigerator goes, the hot water tank busts, the heater or the air conditioner goes. That would be an emergency. My dishwasher broke right, after the hard heat of COVID there. We didn't need a dishwasher. There's only two of us. We were empty nesters. We didn't replace it. It took us like 8 weeks to buy a new one. It wasn't an emergency. But knowing that you have that money, if you lose your job, right? You get laid off. My son got laid off, totally unexpected. You never know when you're going to lose your job and they're going to downsize. You don't have to worry about it because you have money in the bank. Getting sick, you break your arm, you need surgery, you're going to be out of work for 6 weeks, you don't have short-term disability, you don't have any savings, what are you going to do, right? Having that emergency savings is so important because if you do lose your job or you need to take some time off from work because you have to care for a sick parent, there's a lot of caregivers out there, this is going to help you be able to do that, and you're going to have that safety and that security. So saving is like planting seeds for your future dreams. So if you look at this little plant here, this little mason jar with a plant, when you save money, and it doesn't matter how much it is, right? I'm saying minimum of 10% of all of your income, you're going to start to grow your future and your dreams. And you can start creating money buckets to save for different things. So if you want a new bike, if you want to buy designer jeans every day and it's not in the family budget, you can start to save your own money to get that, right? And this creates that security. It creates that satisfaction of knowing, like, wow, I was able to save it. So if you get a dollar and you save 10%, that's only 10 cents, right? So when you think about the percentage, the small amount that you're just setting aside, it gives you that sense of, yeah, I can do that. That's a no-brainer. And changing that thought process of, I can't save 10%, that's too much. Because if you're making 5,000 and you save 10%, you're like, $500, I need to pay that. I need to use that to pay my debt. I need to pay my bills. But what happens is our minds automatically adjust, our lifestyle automatically adjusts because we're paying ourselves first. Okay. When we pay ourselves first, our mind automatically says, you know what? This is the most important bill. If this is a bill, I'm a bill. I'm a bill. I'm going to pay myself first. I'm going to set aside 10% of my income, all my income to savings. I'm going to put it in emergency savings first. I'm going to build that up. And then I'm going to start saving for things that I love. Because what would you love to save for? The new car, the new house, the trip, the fancy trip, right? Whatever it is, start dreaming those dreams. And then when we look at spending wisely, our needs versus our wants, right? So I said earlier, 50% goes towards needs. A lot of times when I look at budgets for people, they have their needs and their wants mixed in, right? Now, needs are things that you have to have. You can't live without, okay? Your car for transportation, your house, your apartment, whatever, however you're living, your gas and electric, your water, your food, clothing, you need those things, right? Now your wants, you know, the toys, the 5 pairs of jeans of the same design, the trips, all of those are wants. The technically cable TV, streaming, gaming, those are all wants. Sorry to disappoint you kids, but those are wants, right? Those are extras. I remember when my kids were little, we took away cable. Cable had inappropriate shows, and at that time they didn't have the block. You weren't able to block the channels, so we just took it away. And we didn't have cable for 5 years, and I had to get my car oil changed. So I brought my two younger ones with me, and they had cable. They had the Disney Channel in the waiting room. I couldn't get those kids out of there. They hadn't had cable. They're like, wow, this is a treat, right? And so these things we take for granted, but not all families have cable. And I remember I was living independently and I didn't even own a TV. I had a TV. I guess I did own a TV, but I never turned it on. I turned it on once in 1 year and I streamed a movie, my favorite movie, Inside Out, and I wanted to see that. So when you think about your spending plan, so if moms out there, show your kids your spending plan. Look at your expenses. Where is your money going, right? And go and make a list next to each item. Is it a need or a want? Gas and electric, you need that. Cell phone, you need that. Um, Cable TV, want. Okay. My mom and I used to do this with her budget. And she'd say, well, I need cable because I don't go out and I don't do anything. So this is my entertainment. I'm not cutting cable. I go, Mom, you can have cable. We'll look at other expenses that we can cut. But when you think about spending wisely, always look at your needs and wants and categorize them and ask and make sure you're not doing any duplicates. There's a lot of people that will subscribe to things and never even use it. Gym memberships, um, vitamins and things of that nature, different companies with, holistic products. So if you're not using that, or if you got the same box coming to your house month after month, you're stocking up, you want to look at that and say, what's this all about? I had a client that had a membership that she did not use for 2 years, but was afraid to let go of it. And, it took some time, but she ended up, like 4 months later, she ended up stopping that membership, and it was a relief. It gave her $200 extra per month. So you can really start to find money that way. Um, Next, we're going to go into the basics of investing. So when we think about investing, okay, everybody automatically thinks of the stock market. There's different ways to invest. There's stocks, bonds, index funds, mutual funds, property, businesses. Those are like the major ways to invest. And when we think about investing our money, we're taking our money and we're putting it in a vehicle. We're putting it in a commodity, if you have a business that's going to allow it to grow faster than if it was in a regular savings account, or for some of you who might have a shoebox full of money. I had 3 clients who took money and put it in a shoebox. Um, I had another client who put her tips in a drawer and didn't even know how much money she had made in tips. Um, that doesn't grow for you. It doesn't earn interest. It's not investing and multiplying. So we want to make our money work for you. So when you think about investing, money grows over time. Okay. There's an analogy with a penny. If you take a penny and multiply it every single day, so on the first day it's 1 cent, the second day it's 2 cents, then 3 cents, and so forth, you'll end up having $1 million. And actually, because of that compound interest, it grows very quickly. But people forget about the compound interest. So when you get interest, if the bank says there's 5% interest, that means if you have $5 in the bank, you're going to get 5% interest on that $5, right? So that interest amount is going to get added to that $5. And then that $5 becomes that interest for that day. It goes into the next day and it becomes that $5 plus that interest combined, right? Does that make sense? So if you have $5 and you receive 5% interest, you're going to have 25 cents added to that $5. So you get $5.25 on the first day, right? And then the next day, they're going to take that 5% interest and they're going to pay that to you on the $5.25. So now you're going to, it's called compounding because they're adding the interest plus the base amount that you started with to pay you interest again. So now that $5 becomes $5.51. And then every single day they do this, and that's how you get your money. When you invest your money and it earns interest, that's how you grow it. Now you can take your money and you can invest it in stocks. And there's three types of investors. We have our moderate, our conservative, and our risk taker. And not necessarily in that order, conservative, moderate, and risk taker. So if you're a conservative, you don't like to gamble, you don't like to go into the stock market, you get really nervous because it fluctuates. If you watch the news, you'll see the tickers at the bottom and you'll see it in red, you'll see it in green, you'll see the numbers and the arrows going up and down. And you're like, ah, and you might not be familiar with stocks, right? Not all companies are publicly, in order to buy stock, the company has to be publicly owned. So in some things, what I always say, I'm not a financial advisor, but what I always say is when you're investing your money, you take your age minus 100, and that difference is how much money you want to go into high risk. If you're not a high risk investor, you're moderate or conservative, lower that risk and give it a chance, give it a shot, see what you can do. My favorite way to invest, if you're employed or if you're self-employed and you have a net profit, there are certain rules. You have to check with the IRS, contribute to a 401k, 403. Very good way, an IRA, very good way to grow your money. A Roth IRA is fantastic because you put it in, pay taxes on that money, and it's tax-free when you withdraw it. So then there's a cap. There are rules about contributing to a Roth IRA, and it's going to be dependent upon the income that you have reported on your federal tax return. But most people can contribute the base amount, which is right now $6,550, I believe. Excuse me. And then if you're over 50, you can do what they call a catch up. So if you have a choice and you're like, well, Lisa, my income's limited. I don't really have a lot of money to invest. I still have some debt. You have your emergency fund built up and you're still paying down debt. What you can do once your emergency fund is built up is you can start that Roth IRA, the contribution. If you're working, and I tell this to everybody, and I think people get really scared. If you're working, you have the option to do a 401k. Make it your goal to max that out because it lowers your tax liability on your paycheck, which is different than filing your taxes. Just try it, okay? Just try it for one pay period and see how much money you take home, okay? And then if you don't like it, change it back. All right. Um, so those are the basics of investing. You want to put your questions in the chat. All right. Goal setting is our next topic. Moms, I want you to set short-term and long-term goals. And kids, I want you to set one financial goal, such as saving for a gadget, saving for those jeans, saving for that snowboard, that, boogie board, whatever it is you want. Maybe you want to set money aside for learning a skill. So just take a couple minutes, talk about it, make sure you're on mute, talk about it, and go ahead and share in the chat. What are some financial goals, kids, that you want? Each share one. And then mom, your short-term goal, what you want to accomplish in the next 30 days. Long-term goal, what you want to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months. Okay, so I see some responses coming in. All right, so short-term goals, pay down credit card debt totaling $557. Long-term goal to save for a new car. A kid goal is to buy a new bike. Mom's short-term goal to replace the table in the kitchen. Long-term goal to buy a new car. Kid's goal is to get a new snowboard. Okay. Short-term goal for mom as to take the kids to Disney. Is that long term or short term? Short term because you've started saving for it. Oh, cool. Grandparents gave you some money towards it. Awesome. The long-term goal is to replace the couch in the living room. Kids' goal is to take dance classes, ballet. How fun. Mom's short-term goal is to get a new laptop. Long-term goal is to invest in an education program. Awesome. And kids' financial goal is to get a Kindle. Very good. Awesome. Now, thinking about these goals, what are some action steps that you need to take in order to make these happen? It's really important to set the goal and then set the intention and make the plan. Make the action steps, take the action steps so that you can have this happen. So the first step when you create your short-term goal is to decide how much is it going to cost you to get this thing. Get the dollar amount, do some research. I always recommend getting at least 3 different quotes. So, for example, if you want to get, what was one of the ones? The Kindle, right? Um, Search 3 different products, 3 different companies that offer it, get the price. Do they go on sale? When's the best time to buy them? Sometimes they have buy one, get one free, right? So think about that and price it out. And then once you see what the best price is, you've done your research, then you can start, you get that dollar amount, and then you can create a plan to start saving for that. So for you kids, you don't have any bills, right? So you can earn money. Maybe you can get an allowance, you can go rake leaves. Well, it's winter time for some of you, you don't have leaves to rake, right? But what can you do some odd jobs, right? To help make money towards this. And moms, if you're giving your kids an allowance, fantastic. There's always this controversy about giving kids an allowance, like they're supposed to help around the house and chores. So coming to an agreement with, should I give my kids an allowance? And then how are they going to use that money? They're going to save some, give away some, enjoy some, right? When I was a kid, my grandma taught me to save 10%, give 10%, and the 80% I could do whatever I want. So I was saving for a bike. And then I ended up getting a bike at a garage sale. Back in the 70s, it was $10. And it was like mostly the money, all the money that I had. And it was perfect. And it was very gently used. So it was an awesome thing. And the same thing for long-term goals. You want to find out, create that money bucket and then find out how much it's going to cost, create that dollar amount. Ellie does this really nicely for you, and then start contributing towards that goal. And even like some weeks you might only be able to do $5, but that's okay. Any income that you have, make the intention to set that dollar amount aside into those money buckets. So then we're going to create a family financial plan. Moms, you set your short-term and long-term goals, and kids, you set your one financial goal. When you think about creating the family financial plan, you want to be sure that all of your needs and wants are being met within reason. A lot of times we think, I'm going to make more money and then I'll have more money. But what happens is we end up making more money and spending more money because we don't have a plan in place. Important to have that plan in place. So sit down, get your expenses out. Look at your expenses over the last 90 days. Just flip through your phone, open up your bank account. You probably use one debit card that shows you exactly how you're spending your money. You might have some cash receipts here and there. Maybe you don't, but you can kind of figure out like, oh, I got paid, I got $5,000 and I spent seven or whatever. A lot of times when I do this on my calls, we end up finding money in their budgets because people just end up spending subconsciously, unconsciously, unconsciously. They're not aware of their spending because someone will call them up and say, "Hey, let's go for lunch, Sally." And they'll be like, "Oh, okay." And they really don't have the money, but they don't want to say no because they want to go out. And so they just end up dropping 30 bucks on lunch. And that happens like 3 or 4 times. And then before you know it, they've tapped into another fund, that, oh, shoot, I got paid the gas and electric. So a lot of times people will say, I need to pay all my bills before I can spend any money. Or they'll end up borrowing, well, the mortgage isn't due for a couple of days, so let me just borrow it and then I'll put it back. I'll go get, do DoorDash or something. And then we end up getting all these different side gigs, hoping that we can make ends meet. But in reality, if we set the intention, right, it's like playing a ball game or playing a card game, right? And your kids are going to be familiar with this. So when you choose the team, you think carefully, who do I want on my team? Who's going to be the best player? And then you select players based on that. And then when you go through and you think about your lost my train of thought. You think about how you're going to win, right? What's the strategy to win? And then so you start talking to your teammates and you're like, okay, you're gonna, hit the ball towards him because they're not a strong player. And then we're gonna do this, and then you're gonna run and we're gonna bring it through. So you have a plan and you discuss it, right? This is exactly what you want to do with your family financial plan. And keeping everybody in the loop, everybody in the know, helps you, it releases that stress that we have as moms saying, thinking, oh, I want to provide for my kids. But in reality, and your kids will tell you this, they don't really care about the money. They want to spend time with you, right? And yeah, they like to have nice things, but if you say to them, well, we need to work for this, we need to save for this, that's a lot different than saying, no, you can never have it. When I was growing up, I was told no constantly. My parents were divorced. Both my parents were entrepreneurs, and my mom, it was like feast or famine. She'd have all kinds of money on Friday, and by Monday she'd be flat broke. And every time I asked for something, it was no, 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 I can't afford it. No, you can't do dance, you can't go skiing, you can't have Jordache jeans, you can't do this. No, no, no. And I was so frustrated. And when I was 13 years old, was like, I'm never going to tell my kids no. And guess what? I didn't. My kids got whatever they wanted. But then it got to the point where they were shopping at all the fancy clothing stores. And my husband was getting really upset. Oh, they don't need designer clothes. They're outgrowing, they're growing too fast. So we compromised and we set a dollar amount for clothes. So every August, right before school started, I gave them each $250 to spend on clothes. And then whatever they bought, if they went into the Abercrombie and got a pair of $200 jeans, then they only had $50. They learned really quick to thrift, and shop the sales and stuff. So when you share with your kids, moms, I'm talking to you out there, when you share with your kids, like, this is the money that we have, what can we do to help multiply it? Especially if you have kids getting ready to go to college. I see some high schoolers here. So thinking about all the ways you can go to college for free. Do you know how many scholarships are out there? And I know I hear you, I don't want to write all those things. You can actually do it very efficiently. You can just write one letter and have that as your template to share and submit and then tailor it for each of the scholarships. And it doesn't really take that long. It just takes the intention. And it's like, how fun would it be to see if you can get scholarships for your whole entire college career if you choose to go to college, or maybe you want to go to trade school? So thinking about those would be some of your long-term goals, you kids out there. And if you get a job, I started working at 11 years old. I started babysitting full time in the summer, $1 an hour, okay? So when you think about what can I do to make money, I live in Melbourne Beach, Florida, and we were going for a walk, and in the neighborhood, a little girl and her dad had set up a table of handmade ornaments. She was selling them for like $5, and they were adorable. And so I bought some, and I thought, look at this little entrepreneur out here. And some of you may have had lemonade stands, so we're always thinking of ways to bring in money and to make money. And there's so many different ways to bring in passive income just right from your home, legit ways to make money. Like, if you have questions about that, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to share some affiliate marketing tools, connections that I have. Absolutely love Love affiliate marketing. It's a great way to create a income stream that doesn't take a lot of time. So that is the end of our presentation. I thank you so much for being here. I'm going to take your questions now. And I just want to invite you to schedule a call. I'm going to be opening up a container for a 12-week wealth accelerator. And this is my 6-month program in 12 weeks. It is going to be focusing on the same exact things, but we're just condensing the time because this is going to be group coaching. So my Wealth Accelerator for 6 months is 1-to-1. This is going to be a small group coaching. I'm accepting 12 clients in. So I know there's a lot of you here. You'd like to join. It's a great time to really tackle your finances, to really start to think about how can I invest my money so that it multiplies? How can I manage the money that I currently have so that my money is growing? I'm meeting my needs and my wants. I'm taking care of my kids and I'm managing it in a way that's congruent with my lifestyle. We're going to be going over, investment strategies, creating your own customized wealth activation roadmap and rewriting that money story so we can start to really think about, do I have debt? Do I want to pay down debt? Do I want to, create these goals so that I can go on these trips, so that I can get these appliances, these new cars? What is it that you really want to do? Because when you implement that plan, that's what's going to help you meet your goals when you implement those action steps. And when we align our conscious with our subconscious, we get to do what we need to do. So if this is something that you're interested in, go ahead and schedule your call to click on that link. I think you can still see this. Um, it's going to be calendly.com/Lisa/Drennan at iDateMoney. I'm going to go ahead and share that in the comments with you. And you'll get a copy of this via email, so it'll also be in the email. But I'm going to share in the comments. Go ahead and book your call now. We can go over it in detail, see what questions you have specifically about the Wealth Accelerator. And if you've been in the program, I know I have some prior clients and some present clients here. You do receive commission sharing it, so you get 10% commission on that. And the Wealth Accelerator 12-week program is $29.97. So you pay that in full. It is $2,500. If you do the monthly payments, it's $29.97 over the 3-month period. So just divide that by 3. Okay, so what questions do you have? Okay, see your questions coming in. Let me just scroll here. Alrighty. How do I know if I'm allocating my money correctly using the money multiplier system? Okay, fantastic question. So the money multiplier system, it's a guide, not a rigid rule. You can, start with a breakdown, very important to get your budget broken down that fits your current income and financial priorities. So the first step is to review your expenses and adjust the percentages to ensure your needs and your goals are met. So set those goals, which we did today, and then make a list of your expenses and make a list of your income. And then really go through those expenses and say, what's your needs, what's your wants? And then if you have debt, right? So, the money multiplier system, it's 50% for needs and wants, 20% towards debt. And if you have no debt, then it's going to go towards investments. And then 10% goes towards giving, savings, and fun money, right? And fun money, people are always like, well, what's the fun money? So really thinking about, how do you want to enjoy your money? What would you love to do? Excuse me. So you can start off small. If you think, oh, I can't use 10% for fun money, I encourage you to start off small, 1%. Definitely do the 10% savings, okay? pay yourself first. But the fun money, build it up. Start off with a $20 challenge. So put $20 in a wallet, in an envelope. Think about what you'd like to buy with that $20. I did this for me. It was a pair of black jeans. Went to TJ Maxx, found 5 pair, 2 pair fit perfectly. The 1 pair I ended up buying were like $12. This was back in like, I don't know, August of 2018. I literally just threw those jeans away last week and finally got holes in them. Wore them a lot. And it was the best 15 and best $12 I spent. I actually ended up buying a shirt to go with it. The shirt I got rid of a long time ago. Okay. What's the best way to build an emergency fund quickly, especially when money feels tight? Yeah. And I know money feels tight, and that's a story that we tell ourselves. So, really getting into that, the best way to build this emergency fund, I'm going to give you the non-traditional key. Be grateful for the money that you do have every single day. Just look around and say, wow, I'm so grateful. I have electricity. I have food on the table. I have money to invest in myself, into education, into whatever. And when you start to build out your spending plan, you're going to see, you in the Wealth Accelerator, we map out your assets and you get to see how much money you truly do have. Because when it's in our head, we don't know how much money is there. We think we know, but we don't because we're not paying attention to it. I had no idea I was a self-made millionaire until I mapped my assets out and looked at my debt. It was like when I did the net calculation, I was like, wow, when did this happen? I had no clue. I went back and figured out when I became a self-made millionaire. It was in 2019. And I did this in 21. And it was just like, huh, who knew? Right? Because I was trying to do it up here. It doesn't work that way. So the first do milestone. So to build that emergency fund quickly, I'll give you the tangible way now. Do it, set small increments. So if you look at 6 months worth of your needs, look at your expenses, takes all the needs, add them up. That becomes, then multiply that six to get that the monthly needs times 6 for the 6 months. That's how much you want to fund. So break that down in increments. Start off with $500. Get as quickly as you can, get $500. Maybe you want to bring in another income stream. I have some affiliate marketing. If you'd like to know more, let me know and I'll send you the link. Um, the Put everything on automation, right? And every single time you get any kind of income, if it's a windfall, special money, when you start to give thanks for the money, it starts to show up more. And you'll be like, oh, even if you get a bill, thank you so much for this bill. I have money to pay this. And that's how you're going to build it. And even if you decide to cut expenses, like maybe just until you build up your emergency fund, you stop one of your streaming services. And that money adds up quickly. And you might say to yourself, oh, it's such a small amount. Don't think about the amount. Just think about the action. It doesn't matter the dollar amount. All right. How do I teach my teens to value saving over spending when peer pressure influences their choices? I remember everyone was wearing designer clothes in high school and I didn't have any. Lead by example. Have that open conversation about the financial plan. Set the goals together and really talk about your priorities. When you share your own savings goals and how they benefit the family, this introduces the concept of saving and it makes it a challenge for fun. So you can say, okay, I get there's a lot of peer pressure and you want these things. How can you come up with, $50, say, to start building towards what you want these rewards to help, right? And then encourage your teens and you guys listening, you kids listening out here, set your own saving goals, right? That's why I had you do the financial goal because the satisfaction of being able to say, I did this. I bought this myself. When I was 11 years old, I had to buy all my own school clothes and school supplies. I dreaded it because it's like all my money's got to go for this, and I wasn't having any fun. So then I would rebel and I'd have fun. So having that balance is so important. And then it really reinforces the importance of the delayed gratification because sometimes we want something right now, but then when we get it, we're like, and you kind of throw it aside, right? So when you delay the gratification, like the rule of thumb is if you do like a spending freeze, or if you think about like if you're like sell a spender like me, and you think about, oh, I want that right now. Wait 7 days. Look at it, see if it's on sale, do your research, and in 7 days, if you still want it, by all means, go get it. But that delayed gratification is going to really help you decide, is this something I really want? Because I don't know how many people buy things and still have the tags on them. Yeah. What are simple, beginner-friendly investment options for someone who has no prior experience? Yeah, start with a low-risk approach, such as a high-yield savings account. One of my favorite ways to, especially if you're a conservative investor, is to build through CD stacking, certificate of deposit stacking. So a certificate of deposit will usually have a higher interest rate than a regular savings account. So again, just Google CD interest rates and you can see a comparison. They usually list the top three. And like I said, LA Bank, Discover Savings Online, Capital One are usually the top three. Um, and what you could do is build in, start building out the CDs. Some CDs you can open it up with as little as $10. And then you build onto it so it lets you save at a higher interest rate. Another one would be index funds, or those are usually safe. Acorns is really fun to do because it rounds up your change and that adds up fast. With Acorn, just know they're going to want you to not only round up and do your change, but to add like $5 or $10 from your checking account every month or every they set it up periodically. I can't remember. I used to do Acorns, I don't do it anymore. But it helps you get it going for you. How can I stick to a budget when unexpected expenses keep coming up? This happens. I know so many people are in this situation because they believe that if they pay all of their bills, or if they start saving, then something's going to come up. Oh, look, an emergency happened. Our attitude is so important. Think positively. Think, oh, instead of, oh, great, I have an emergency fund started and now an emergency came up. Think, wow, cool. An emergency came up and I have the money for it. Yay, I'm prepared. Build a buffer into your budget by using the money multiplier system. When you take that 10% for savings, your 10% for fund money, a lot of people have miscellaneous categories. No, we don't do miscellaneous categories. Okay. Every dollar has a job. Okay. You've heard Dave Ramsey say that, I'm sure. And it's true. Every dollar has a job. This is why we create the spending plan. Like if you guys watch football, they don't just go out there and play football. They practice, practice, practice. They have a game plan. And they go over the game plan. They go over their strategy. They might change their strategy as they're playing the game, right? This is the same thing we want to do with our money. Things are going to come up unexpectedly, okay? But Christmas and birthday are not unexpected, okay? We all know about those a year in advance. What would be an unexpected expense? Something breaks. Well, you kind of know when you buy something, it's going to break. That's why it's important to have that emergency fund built up. So your number one priority is to build up that emergency fund. You do that by sticking to the plan. Create the plan and stick to it. And when something unexpected comes up, do that 7-day thing. Do I absolutely need it? Now, obviously, if your hot water tank goes or your heater, or your air conditioning goes, depending on what state you're in, right? It's going to determine whether you need it or not. Your car breaks, you're going to need to get that fixed. That's going to be an emergency. So what you want to do is be able to prioritize and think about, okay, what can I do in this event? And start to think about it, like plan it in the future. Like what will happen if something, like if my roof needs repair or what have you. You want to be sure you have all that taken care of. And when you track your expenses, I'm not saying you got to track every single money. That's why I like to have fun money. So all my fun money, when I go out and have fun, I have one card. I just swipe it, and I know I don't have to worry about it. I'm never going to borrow from another bucket because all my fun money is on things. But what happens is a lot of people just commingle their funds, and then when they go out, they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to borrow. Oh, I think I have it. I'm not sure, but I'll worry about it later. I'll worry about it later." And then later comes and you're like, oh, I don't have any money. So stick to the plan, create the plan and stick to it. How do I align my financial goals with my teens' goals when our priorities differ? Get on the same page. Start by having an open discussion where both sides share the goals and reasons behind them, right? So ask your kids, do they want to go see grandma and grandpa every weekend? Do they want to go camping, right? Find the common ground. And where can you compromise? Where can you, like any partnership, any family situation, like if you guys are in the habit of having family meetings, you have that open communication, and you can build that security, that education, and that experience with each other and understand like, oh, okay, I get it. And, having those conversations where you can work it out together and say, okay, I really know you want to get it. I remember one time I wanted to go, um, what's it called? Not skydiving, but parasailing. And we were in Myrtle Beach, and it was my family. I had three kids and my husband and and I really wanted to go parasailing. And my kids wanted to go, but my husband didn't want to go. And my youngest couldn't go at the time. He wasn't old enough. And so there was only three of us out of the five that could go. And we sat and we talked about it. My husband says, well, it's not something we can all do together. What if we could do, maybe we could save that for next time. Or we could, do this together. And so we ended up compromising, and it ended up that we couldn't go because it was too windy anyways, but we ended up going to a water park and we had a blast. So compromise. All right, one time for one more question. I don't want to go over the time. I want to honor your time. So one more question. Um, what tools or apps can help me and my family track our spending and savings together? Um, I love Rocket Money. I love You Need a Budget. I don't use You Need a Budget because it doesn't suit me. I'm a Google Doc girl. I have a Google Doc. As a gift to you all for being here today, I'm going to be emailing you a wealth activation roadmap to create tracking and spending. And it has drop down boxes. It's very beautiful. So you can use that to start managing your money. Um, Anything, if you're not a Google Doc, you can convert that to Excel if you're an Excel person. What I use is Rocket Money, and it it does it for me. I like that. I also use Every Dollar with Dave Ramsey. That's a really good budget. What I use Every Dollar for is I plug in my spending, so I have fixed expenses, and then I have my flexible expenses, and then you can just track it that way. For me, it works best to use the Google Doc. I transfer my money. I have separate accounts. So I have like 12 different bank accounts, and I have cards. So I have a fun money card, then I have my savings for in my giving account. So that's with Allie, and then I have my little buckets set up. So then when I go to send my giving in every month, I just transfer it over. So I have it all set up on automation. Mint is a good one as well. I've used Mint. Greenlight and FamZoo are some other apps that I am not familiar with, but you can check those out. And I recently had a guest on my podcast who invented an app called, or created an app called Moolah. I have not used that. I haven't checked that out yet. I'm considering checking that out and doing a sponsor to see if that's a good fit. So really, whatever you, whatever will motivate you to want to track your expenses. I have clients that literally use a piece of copy paper and write out their budget. My son takes a little piece of notepad and writes out his budget every week. He gets his paycheck, he writes it out, and he, has his money going. He knows exactly where it goes, and then he has it set up automatically. But he makes sure. I was a treasurer for over 30 years, and we always triple checked everything. So the Google Doc with the app, with the statements from the bank, that was the triple check. So a lot of times I hear people say, "Oh, well, my money in my bank doesn't match my statement, doesn't match my, my budget sheet." Then you're not doing something. You're missing an action step. So this is a way to double check it. And that's something that we go dive deeper in at the Wealth Accelerator. So schedule your call. We'll go over it, see if it's a good fit for you. Yeah, great questions. So thank you. If you have any other questions, email them to me. I'll get them back to an email. Probably make a podcast out of them too. It'd be a great way to do a podcast. And if any of you would like to be a podcast on the show, just let me know. And remember, book your call, Wealth Acceleration call. Get into the Wealth Accelerator 29.97 for 12 weeks. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.